Good evening, everyone. First off, I want to acknowledge with deep gratitude and respect, I am honored to be learning and unlearning on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Hamathkuyam, Skohomish Okomayam, and tsleil Nation. Welcome to VSB After the Bell Live. I'm your host, Jiana Chow. We're very excited to have you join us as we talk about preparing for the very important milestone of kindergarten. As your moderator for this evening's live event, we're going to look at what it takes to get your child ready for kindergarten. This is part of our learning series, VSB After the Bell Live, where it's designed to give families direct access to educators and experts on topics that matter most to student learning and well-being. Tonight, we're looking at the transition to kindergarten for students and their families. We will explore what you and your child can expect for kindergarten, ways to support their transition, navigating common concerns, developing independent skills, and community support. We have a wonderful conversation planned for tonight. A quick reminder that you can also submit questions through the Q&A chat at the very top. You might see the three dots at the top. And you can ask them anytime throughout the presentation. Since the session will be public and it will be posted on our website afterwards, we ask that you avoid sharing any personal or sensitive information. We'll do our best to address as many questions as possible. The most common questions received will be answered at the end during the Q&A portion. Some of you may have also submitted questions beforehand, and those will be answered throughout tonight's presentation. So before we dive in, I want to introduce you to tonight's subject matter expert, Adrienne Stewardson. She is a district principal of early learning and childcare with VSB. She began her career as an English language learner, and she was a teacher in Japan, and she has over a decade of experience as an elementary school teacher with VSB. Adrienne holds a Bachelor of Political Science, a Bachelor of Education specializing in early language learner, and a Master's in Education and Leadership. She has served as a school vice principal, a principal with VSB, bringing a strong foundation in both classroom and school leadership. Outside of work, Adrienne is also a proud mother of two, and she has personal experience with the transition to kindergarten. Adrienne, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Jiana.
Great. So let's start by setting the stage what a typical day in the life looks like for a VSB kindergarten student.
So a day in the life of a kindergarten student in the VSB is going to look different from school to school, but some of the things that you can expect for your child is a lot of play. And so depending on where you had your school-based experience or depending on when you went to school, that might look a little bit different than what we're used to. So children learn through play, and that play is super vital to our children's learning and growing, and they become individuals through spontaneous and planned and experimental play. So I want you to think about back in your memories and think about what was your earliest experience of play? And then you can think about what occurred at that time in play and who else was involved. And those are types of things that we want to explore through kindergarten. And that's a time where you're going to be able for our children to learn through play, just like we did when we were young about playing. So also in kindergarten in VSB, we use a document called the BC Early Learning Framework. And I encourage families to go online, and we can put up a link possibly in the chat for the BC Early Learning Framework and take a look at that. And that really guides our educators about play. Some of the principles in the early learning framework are children are strong and capable in their uniqueness and have full potential. Early years spaces are inclusive spaces, and play is an integral part of their well-being and learning. So we use this document to guide our teaching in kindergarten. And if you go and take a look at the document, then you'll be able to see how we frame our days in kindergarten. One of the other things you'll notice about kindergarten when you go in September is something called gradual entry. That means that your child will take a little bit or some time to get into the full day of kindergarten. So with the VSB, our first full day of kindergarten will be Wednesday, September 10th. All kindergarten children will be in their classes full day at that point.
So when will families know about what the schedule will look like for gradual entry?
Good question. So before the end of this school year, you should be contacted by your children's school. So that'll be June 27th, I believe, is our last day of school this year. You should hear from your children's school about the gradual entry schedule for September. It's going to look different for each school, somewhat similar, but a little bit different. And a lot of that has to depend on how many kindergarten classes each school has. So if there's only one kindergarten class at the school, that schedule will look a little bit different than if you have 6 classes of kindergartens. So each school will be individualized, but every school will be into class on September 10th, Wednesday the 10th, and you should hear from your child's school before the end of this school year.
So it's good to know, especially for working parents, so they can expect basically the first week and a bit to adjust their schedule and plan accordingly. Their child may be coming home with them for most of the day and then slowly build up to go to school 6 hours a day.
Absolutely. Your first day probably will only be an hour, or maybe it'll be 15 minutes with sort of a meet the teacher type thing. Each one's going to look different, but you can expect that if you are a working family, you'll have to arrange some childcare, or you might have to take some time off to make sure that you're available to pick up and drop off your child and for that first little time of school.
There's also a lot of emotion for a child and their family as they transition to kindergarten. It's a huge change after all. Adrienne, what are some common feelings children and their families might feel?
So you can get hit 3 ways on this one. So you could have your child who's going to kindergarten, but they could also have siblings. And this is going to be could be a new experience for your siblings too, right? Maybe they spend their whole day at home with their siblings. Maybe they all go to childcare together. Maybe there's times when they spend so much time. So, and also you personally as a parent or a caregiver or a grandparent might have emotions as well about this moment. It's a big moment. So there's sort of 2 sides of this. You could have a super excited child. You could be asking questions. They want to see the school. They're all excited. Let's go. I'm out the door. I want to go. And I'm super independent and confident. And then it could also be the reverse of it. They're maybe a little nervous and maybe there's some tears. I know some parents, there might be some tears from us too, your kids growing up. There could be some clinging. There could be even some complaints of stomach aches and tantrums and irritability. And all of that is really, really, really normal. And you shouldn't feel that if you're experiencing these or your children are experiencing these, that any of these things are abnormal. There's resources that are available. There's some really great websites. Anxiety Canada has some really great tips to help manage emotions, either really big excitement emotions or really kind of nervous emotions. But one of the great websites that we often recommend, or I often recommend to families, is to go to anxietycanada.com, and they have some great tips on how to help a child and to help with you as well.
Yeah, and also for those of you joining in a little bit late, we said that we would be sharing the resources that Adrienne talks about in the chat. So as she's mentioning them, I'm just plopping them into the chat. So be sure to check out that feature over there. Adrienne, how about talking to your kid about these emotions? How should parents go about this?
So there's different ways, and you know your child best. We always look at our families as being their parents' first teacher. So you know your child, and you know how your child communicates with you. Some children like to sit on things for a little while. I know my children both act very differently. My son really has to really think about things for a little while, and then maybe an hour or 2 or even a day later, he'll start sharing. My daughter, on the other hand, is like, blah, 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 right away. So you know your child best. Be patient with them, encourage sharing, listen, create some check-in moments with them, and just keep talking them. And make sure you also share your moments with them and tell them how you're feeling a little bit. Calm moments to talk to your kid are bedtimes or meal times. Sometimes driving in the car can be a nice time to talk. But whatever it is that they're worried about or that they're excited about, make sure you're listening to them with your full attention and that you're giving them the time that they need to be able to share their emotions and talk about their emotions.
But what about kids who aren't as expressive or vocal? I definitely know my son. He's one of those where you ask him, how was your day? No matter how many questions, it's good. Not descriptive, one word. And that's just his personality. What sort of coping skills can you give to families? Some tips that can help them understand how they should approach their child who's not as expressive.
Yeah, and that's so one of the things that you can do is like you can talk about, okay, specific instances. So what happened, or, if this happens, what are we going to do? And talk about problem solving instead of trying to say it'll be fine or just be brave or don't worry about it, all's okay. We can talk about actual ways to try and problem solve things together. So, maybe if you go to school and you dropped all your lunch on the floor, what do we do about that? Where do we go and find that? And how and pre-plan things for your child to help build up their confidence so that they know how to deal with situations that might or might not happen at school. I would really go and take a look at some websites, talk to other families. I mean, you're talking to parents, your parents and your friends and your colleagues and stuff are also really great ways of sharing information about how to talk to your children and stuff. But listen to your child, and they'll probably help you or lead you through how they need to be engaged.
Okay, so before arriving to kindergarten, then there are a few different skills families can help their child to learn and start to practice on during the summertime. Of course, every child is different, but if your child is able to be independent with a few key skills, the transition to kindergarten might be just a little bit easier. Adrienne, what are some of the independent skills children might start working on before and during kindergarten?
So some of these are your child maybe like whizzing through. And some of them, maybe your child's not there yet, and that's all okay. But the easier we can take some of the things off a plate that a child has to worry about or think about while they're at kindergarten, the more they can concentrate on all the new things that are going to happen at kindergarten. So the first one I want to talk about is toileting. And it's really, really important that your child is be able to be independently toileted. So even if your child goes to preschool or childcare right now, the ratio for adults to children in a classroom is a little bit different. So in a typical kindergarten classroom, we have one teacher to 20 kindergarten students. And so there's a little bit more independence asked of the children in the kindergarten classroom. So one of the things they would have to be able to do is ask to use the toilet. Or if English isn't their first language, or they're in French immersion and they don't know how to say it in French yet because they're just beginning, is there a way that they can demonstrate, I need to go to the toilet somehow? And they'll usually put up their hand and ask to use the toilet. The next thing they're going to have to be able to do is they are public bathrooms and there are stalls. So make sure your child's able to lock and unlock a stall door by themselves. You're not going to be able to be there to help them. So this is something you really should go and practice if they don't already know how to do that. The next one is hygiene that comes around toileting. You want to make sure that your child is able to wipe themselves properly. There's nobody at school that's going to be able to wipe your child. So if they do have a bowel movement at school, the expectation is that they'll be able to wipe themselves. And of course, afterwards, the hygiene is washing your hands with soap and making sure they understand the importance of washing their hands after using the toilet. All of that being said, accidents happen. And we're teachers and we're at school and we've been in kindergarten classrooms and it happens, and kids are so busy playing and they just forget that they have to go to the bathroom, or something happens, and that's okay too. Accidents happen. Kindergarten teachers are super prepared for accidents. I encourage you, please, to send your child with a clean pair of clothes to change into, and let your child know where those clothes are. So that would be a new pair of underwear, a new pair of pants, and clean socks. And so that they know how to change themselves into the dry clothes. So there wouldn't be an adult there to help them change. The expectation would be that they are able to change and get into the new clothes by themselves. The other weird thing I'm going to mention is urinals. And so years ago, I taught a little boy who was raised by predominantly women, and he had never seen a urinal before. And it was an older school, and he went into the boys' washroom and he saw these big roaring machines, and it terrified him. He had no idea what it was. And it took about 6 months for us to be able to get him to go back into the boys' washroom. So if you have a child who identifies as male and might be using the boys' washroom, I highly recommend you go and visit a public toilet that has a urinal in it. Especially some of our schools are older ones and they're a little bit, the water runs constantly. So they might be something you want to show your child a little bit before they come to school so they're prepared for seeing that.
As a boy mom myself, definitely practice standing up. To go pee was a skill that we learned, and I'm glad that we did so, because it actually makes going in the urinal a lot easier. We have a question from the audience, which is relating to this toileting topic. The person asks, do you have teaching assistants to assist students to the washroom? Because some washrooms might be far away.
Yeah, so at the very beginning of the school year, typically what a kindergarten teacher will do is that's part of it is they will take the whole class down in one big go, and they have sort of scheduled toilet type moments. So before recess, probably the whole class goes down and everybody kind of does it together. As the weeks progress and go on and children get more familiar with the school environment, they tend to go in pairs. So you'd go with a partner or we'll go in small groups down. But for quite a while, the first couple of weeks, your child won't be sent by themselves. There'll be small groups that go, or there'll be an adult that goes with them, or the whole class goes down and people wait out in the hallway. And then you stand there and you sing songs while people are using the washroom. It's kind of a big thing, but your child on the first day definitely will not be left alone to go and use the toilet. It's definitely a progression. And by the end of it, they're just ready to go. So, but it does take time, and there are adults to support them walking down the hall and make sure they're going to the right place that they're supposed to be going to.
And also, just in terms of planning for schools, staff usually put kindergarten classrooms close to the washroom. If not, in some schools, the washroom is directly in the kindergarten pod. So we definitely are mindful of the walk to the washroom and making sure that they don't get lost within the school and they can go back to their classroom easily.
Absolutely. And usually in a school, there's a primary washroom and then an intermediate washroom because they're kind of in different sections of the school. And so it is much closer to the kindergarten kids because we do really get that they're just little and they need to, accidents happen. And so we try to make it as easy as possible for kids to get to the bathroom.
Okay, so let's say an accident happens. What should the child expect? Where do they change? Do they change themselves? Does a teacher change them? What about dressing?
So there's a couple of things that would really help your child with dressing. And so we live in Vancouver, and we go outside to play every day. It's really important for children to play outside and get some fresh air. And so that requires a lot of different types of clothing when you come into school at kindergarten. So rain jackets, rain boots. We're going to need layers for cold weather and stuff. And all these things your child should be able to put on and take off and do up by themselves. So I would really recommend not purchasing things that have really complex fasteners on them. So a zipper on your coat would be really great. Snaps sometimes are a little bit tricky for kids. So if your child has a little bit of struggling with snaps, maybe try and avoid that for a little while. Shoes. Please do not send your child to school with laced up shoes. Nobody will be there to tie up your children's shoes. So Velcro shoes to start with, or slip-on shoes until your child is maybe really, really proficient and able to tie up shoelaces really quickly. But the transition from outside to inside is pretty quick. And so giving them shoes that they'd be successful in would be really good. I also look at clothing, and I know it's super cute to send your child to school in a really glittery outfit or a really beautiful party dress or a shirt and a bow tie and suspenders because they look absolutely adorable. But clothing should be comfortable. They're going to play hard, and chances are they're going to get dirty. The expectation is that they go outside. Sometimes we do painting, or we're doing Play-Doh, or there's sometimes water tables or sand. So you want to send your kid to school in clothes that are really, really comfortable and clothes that you're okay with them playing in and getting dirty. They probably will get wet at school, not maybe from a toileting accident, but just from being outside. And they probably, I would say 99% of children at some point in time need to change into dry clothes at school. It happens. And so usually you send your child in a bag. If you go to our On Our Way to K events, you get this really great blue string bag that we're giving out, and you can use that as your child's extra clothing bag. Put in clean underwear, a t-shirt, pants, socks, leave that at the school. Usually the kindergarten teachers ask you to leave it on their hook in their coat room, and your child can take that bag of fresh clothes down to the bathroom, and they can get changed in the bathroom and then come back to their classroom with the wet or the dirty clothes to take home for laundry.
As a hot tip, because we live in Vancouver, I found through experience Muddy Buddies are really helpful. So they're kind of these onesies, but they're waterproof. And for kindergartners, they're great because they keep them dry when they go outside to play during recess or lunch. I'm also seeing lots of questions pop up, so you will see them on your side as well. And keep asking us the questions. If we don't get to them during the presentation, we will have answer them during the Q&A section at the end of this presentation. And the questions with the most votes, in case we can't get to every question, will be answered first. So make sure to like a question if you also are curious about that.
So on your Muddy Buddy topic, before we go to the next one,
Ah,
Jen, I was just thinking when kids go out in puddles and play and they jump in them, and then the water goes over top of the boot into the boot because the Muddy Buddy elastic isn't over top of the boot. So if you can practice with your kid, it's a pretty big talent, I'm going to have to say. I'm not even sure my kids can get their elastic over top of their boot, but that would be a really good thing to be able to do to practice before super wet weather if they can put the elastic on the top of the boot.
yeah, that is
But
a good tip. Those like small details, right, that you learn through experience. Okay, so how about the next tip for parents and getting them prepared?
so eating. Um, Eating at schools is definitely a learnt skill. I want families to understand that eating at schools is something that takes time and practice, and it's a bit of a different feel. So even if your child goes to childcare right now or they go to preschool, there's a lot of adult support, and it's usually a small sort of environment. I know childcare rules have a ratio, and you're kind of in a separate little place, and it's really kind of um, it's still quite sheltered a little bit. Schools, on the other hand, some of our schools are, 100 students in them, but some of our schools are really quite large and they have, 500 or 600 children in them. So they're a little bit loud. And eating takes place in different parts of the school depending on the school. So some schools have a lunchroom where your child will go and eat in the lunchroom. Some schools will eat in their classrooms. Some schools will be so there's a lot of different places and a different way your children are going to eat. But the thing that gets kids the most is the socialization and the noise. And they're just chitter, chatter, 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 chitter, chatter, chatter. And then they realize, oh, now it's outside playtime. And I totally didn't eat because I was talking and playing and not. So usually, typically, kids will get about 20 minutes to eat. So what I really recommend is that you send them healthy options that they enjoy. The first couple weeks of kindergarten probably isn't the time to be experimenting with food. So if your child doesn't eat cauliflower right now, I highly recommend maybe not sending them to school with cauliflower. But if they love blueberries, send them with blueberries every day, and that's what they'll eat. And make sure they're in containers that your child can open. There isn't a lot of help so if you have a thermos, and we all know thermoses are amazing things, but lots of times they get all jammed up at the top. So make sure you have a thermos that your kid can open. And practice opening them with them over the summertime. Here's your lunch containers. Let's open them all up. And another hot tip is that kids get distracted. And so they see a cookie. I'm going to eat the cookie. I'm going to run away. And I'm not going to eat the apple slices or the sushi that my family so lovingly, carefully prepared for me. If you label your containers 1, 2, and 3, and your child needs to eat container 1 first before they can eat container 2, before they can eat container 3, that might help guide them with knowing what they have to eat and what order they're supposed to eat in them.
How about the classroom teachers when the kids are eating? Do they stay with their students to make sure that they're eating their lunch?
So I think about some schools, and so lots of schools they'll start early because they know kindergarten. eating at schools is a practiced thing and it takes time. So definitely in kindergarten at the very beginning, they start early and they'll give your child more than, the 20 minutes. They'll probably start 20 minutes before lunchtime, getting the children washed hands and set up for lunch and stuff like that. So at the very beginning, you don't need to worry. There'll be some help and support, and kindergarten teachers are amazing at establishing routine and really letting the children know. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, the kids will be old hat at it. They'll know their lunchtime routine. They know where to go. They know how to wash their hands, and they'll be able to get support. And all else fails, I've, as a school principal, have inevitably every day opened up a thermos. There are people to help that come around. We won't let your child starve.
And I just want to normalize that it's okay if your kid comes back home without their lunch being touched. I think it took me maybe about a good 6 months to just accept that because, as a mom who spends a lot of effort trying to make sure that the lunches look cute and they're nutritious and they're yummy and you save what's really good for them to eat, and then they come home and they don't eat it, it is very disappointing and discouraging, but that is because it's a learned skill and it does take some time getting used to some practice. So it's okay. You're not alone. We all are in the same boat.
Yeah, exactly right. They'll get there.
Okay, so student success is a joint effort between schools and families. What are some of the ways families can support their child to help set them up for a successful year of kindergarten?
So I'd really like to talk a little bit about screen time. And so if you go to a website at BC Children's Hospital, it's called Kelty Mental Health. And Kelty Mental Health has some really great recommendations for screen time and for children. So their recommendation for school age children is no more than 2 hours per day of recreational screen use. And so what I want to say, that's not just about screen use, it's about what they're watching on the screen. And so my recommendations to families is watch with your child so you know what they're seeing, and choose age appropriate things. So you can sit beside them and say, hey, let's see what we're doing together, and pick a show and watch them together. Um, it's really, really easy for children nowadays to kind of go down this rabbit hole of click, 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 and you're cooking dinner and you think they're just watching whatever it is that you put on their iPad because you need to cook dinner. Everybody does it. We've all done it. I just want you to be a little bit conscious and a little bit aware to make sure that you know what they're actually watching. And then the other thing for us as adults is to be a really good role model about our screen time. So if we're always on our phone, or we're always on an iPad or on a computer, um, we need to model that for our children. So if we're going to have screen time and stuff, maybe take an effort to wait until after they're in bed, and then you can watch your TV shows and stuff when the kids aren't around. But I really would be conscious about making sure there's very minimal screen time in kindergarten, that the time in kindergarten is really meant for playing and socializing. And so there'll be limited screen time throughout the course of the day in kindergarten classes.
Can we talk about bedtime? What time should kids go to sleep? What time should they wake up? School all starts at 9 o'clock. Actually, this is a good segue. One of the question was, what time does school start? When is recess? When is lunch? And when does school finish?
So typically the day is 9 to 3. That's the full day of school. I think it's actually 2:58, but to be honest, I'm 9 to 3. And then where recess is usually around 10:30. Each school sometimes might have a bit of a different recess bell. It depends on how they set up their schedule. And recess is 20 minutes. And then lunch, I believe, is around 12:10 to 1 o'clock. So they get about I give or take 20 minutes for a recess break, and then about 45 minutes, 50 minutes for a lunch break. And in that lunch break encompasses the eating and the play time. So they'll get about 20 minutes for eating and then about 30 minutes outside playtime. That's just a general overview. You should talk to your school for their exact bell schedule, but that gives you a good idea of what it is. The
And just
bell,
to chime
yeah.
in, Adrienne here. I just want to emphasize the 20 minutes because I think that puts into perspective, going back to the eating, is, my kids for sure, they spend an hour to eat, if not more. And so you have 20 minutes to eat your lunch. So just imagine that, and what to give them to eat.
Yeah, and then their friend is yelling at them to, hey, let's go out and play. Let's go, buddy. Let's go. Come on, let's go. The guy got the soccer ball, right? And so there's this pressure to go play. And so it takes some adjustment and takes some time. It's they can do it. They will do it, and everybody gets and does it, but it does take some adjustment. So I recommend, in Kelty, BC Children's Hospital, if you go to the Kelty Mental Health, they recommend that children between 5 and 12 get 10 to 11 hours of sleep per night. So if we're thinking about a typical school day, that would mean going to bed around 7:30 p.m. and a 7:30 a.m. wake up. If they go to bed at 7:30 p.m., chances are they're not just going to fall asleep right away, but maybe a nice bedtime story and just a bit of a quiet time so they are asleep sort of by 8:30, and that will give you your about 11 hours of sleep for waking up at 7:30, an hour to get ready to school and go. I understand completely that that is not possible for everybody, that people have to get their child to morning care or people have to go to work and they pick their child up lately. I I had to take my children to morning care in the morning. And so we did have to get them up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I had to get to work myself. And so these are just guidelines, and suggestions, but a really good sleep routine really helps your child be successful at school. Your child may come home tired. Being at school is really, really hard. It's really busy. It takes a lot of effort to concentrate the whole day. I really, really recommend that you don't allow them to nap after school. There is no nap time in kindergarten. So if you're working on dropping your nap, if your child still naps in the afternoon, I really recommend that you work on dropping that nap so that they're ready for September. Dropping naps are hard. We're all parents. You have about 3 months now to try and drop an afternoon nap if you're still napping, but there's no napping at school. I would really recommend that if your child's tired after 3 at school, push through, persevere, and get them to bed early to get them on a really good schedule.
Give them snacks, keep them entertained, get them outside, do what you can, and rather early bedtime than a nap in the middle because having a child be awake until 11 o'clock at night is not fun.
No, and then you're tired because you have to go to work the next day, right? It's a cycle that you try and want to break as fast as possible.
How about language? What can they do to help their children get prepared for language, for reading, for writing? I don't know. Does that happen in kindergarten?
So the first thing you want to talk about is oral language. Oral language is one of the first ways that our children learn, and talking is the main way that your child is going to communicate with the world around them from the beginning. And talking doesn't have to be in English. So if you're a new English speaker and your children are new English speakers, talking to them in your home language is amazing. It's perfect. So they'll develop oral language skills, which helps progress into reading and writing later. But oral language is your first way your child is going to communicate. So you really want to narrate your day with your child. You really want to talk to them as much as possible. So look at the tall blue building as you drive versus just saying, hey, do you see that building over there? Be really descriptive. I'm adding noodles to the sauce. The sauce is tomato sauce. What color is it? Oh, it's red. Like, use as much language as you possibly can while you're talking to your children. Your child's vocabulary between the ages of 3 and 5 will almost double to about 1,500 words. So they're like little sponges right now between 3 and 5 years old. The more you talk, the more they're absorbing. Reading should be done for fun right now. There shouldn't be a ton of pressure on your child. There's no expectation that they're reading right now. If your child is reading, great, that's wonderful. But there's no expectation that your child is reading before kindergarten or even throughout the course of kindergarten. But enjoy a book with your child. Sit down and talk to your child about the book. Pick up the same book and read it over and over and over. It may be horrible and monotonous for you. I think I read the Pigeon books with my kids 1,000 times, and I can tell you, don't let the pigeon drive the bus almost by heart, but they loved it. And then they can start to repeat the book back to you. And those are beginning stages of reading. So 10 minutes a day with a book read the book, talk about the book, repeat with the book, look at the pictures. What do you think the pigeon is feeling right now? I'm going to tell you the pigeon felt really frustrated through half that book. But these are all good steps to get your child set and ready to start to learn how to read and write later on.
Okay, so we talked about kind of the at-home stuff. What about going to school? What type of preparation can families do to help their kids travel to their school?
Yeah, so I would practice getting to your school. So hopefully most of you know where your child's going to school in September right now. Some of you may be waiting on choice programs. Some of you may be waiting on hearing about other options. But for the most part, I think most people should know where they're going to school. And so over the course of the summer, I really recommend going to the school and go the way you would get there. So if you're going to walk to school with your child, walk to school with your child the way that you would walk. If you're going to ride your bikes, if you're in a scooter, if you're at a choice program and you're going farther afield, maybe hop on the bus, like you're going to take the bus if that's how you're planning on getting to school, or go for a drive and show your child this is the way we're going to be driving to school. When you're there, play at the playground. It gives them confidence at recess and lunchtime, because recess and lunchtime are sort of free play times. That they know, okay, I know these swings. I've been on these swings before. Oh, I know this climbing apparatus, or I know this area where they have really good rocks here. So if you go, I would recommend 3, 4, 5 times over the course of the summer, and then they can go and they're like, I've been here, I've done this, and it gives them a boost of confidence. One of those trips, I recommend bringing your lunch with you. So go back to that lunch bag that we packed a while ago and they can make it a thing. We're going to go to the school and we're going to have lunch and sit down at the playground and let them play and let them have their lunch as if they were having a day at school. The more you get an opportunity to practice, the more confidence your child will have and familiarity with this space, and they'll be less nervous about the newness of it. And it also helps you go, oh, my child can do this. So it goes both ways.
That's a great practice tip. But also just to know, that doesn't mean your kid is going to be eating outside. It depends. They might be eating in the lunchroom or in their classroom, or somewhere else. It's all dependent per school. But just the notion of eating at school, practicing that, it's a great tip. Okay, so we're almost near the end of our show today, at least for the presentation portion. The last topic that I want to talk about is community support. What resources should family know about beforehand or during kindergarten that might help them out?
So one of the good things that we have available to us is Vancouver Coastal Health. And Vancouver Coastal Health is this wealth of information. If you go to the Vancouver Coastal Health website, they just have tons and tons of information that can support you and your child. Vision screening is free for children. I highly recommend that you take your child to get a vision screening, making sure that your child has glasses. If they need glasses for starting school is really, really helpful to them. Dental. And if you aren't aware that we have the federal dental program right now, if your child hasn't seen a dentist in a while, I highly recommend going and figuring out how to go have your child see a dentist. Dental pain is unfortunately quite prominent in some young children, and it just is terrible. So if you could help alleviate some of that pain from them and make them concentrate, or allow them to concentrate on school versus some pain, that would be amazing. Vancouver Coastal Health also has immunizations clinics over the summertime. Immunizations, if you choose to immunize your child, are available through school and kindergarten, but you can also make appointments at Vancouver Coastal Health hubs, I guess, for over the course of the summer, and get your child immunized with you before they start kindergarten if you're interested in getting your child immunized. The last one, there's a really great video, and I think Jiana will post that into the chat as well. It's just a cute little video about separation and dropping your child off at school, and how you can help support your child and support you, because you might have some tears as well when you say goodbye to your child. Jiana will drop that in, and it's a really cute little video about ways and tips to talk about separation, and that you'll see each other soon, and it's just a blip in time, and that you'll soon be back together.
And those of you who maybe I'm seeing some chatter on the side that they can't find the links, we'll have these in our show notes, so they will be available. There's also a lot of questions about if this presentation will be available offline, and yes, we will be posting this particular session on our podcast website. So it's under the VSB website, and I sent the link in the show notes as well, or in the chat as well. So this pretty much sums up the presentation portion. I hope that you learned a lot, but we've also received a ton of questions throughout. And so I'm going to save some time for us to go through them. Again, if you missed the beginning, I said that ask your questions, but also if you have this same question as that's one that's already posted, just give it a like and I'll start answering the ones with the most like, and we'll kind of we'll prioritize it this way. Lots of questions about school supplies, Adrienne. What can parents do to help their child be prepared for school supplies? What do they need to buy beforehand?
Nothing. You're good. So the way the Vancouver School Board works is that we provide your child with the necessary school board or school supplies for their learning. So you don't need to go buy sparkly crayons. You don't need to buy scissors. You don't need to make and show up to school, and all the school supplies will be provided at the school. Typically in kindergarten, that looks like the teacher will have glue sticks and some notebooks for them to color and stuff like that. It is nice that they could have a backpack. So if you're able to get your child a backpack, and not a super ginormous one that's the same size as their body, because I see so many cute little guys walking around with these huge adult-sized backpacks, and that's probably not the best thing. So you want to make sure that inside the backpack they can fit their lunchbox or whatever it is that you're going to pack their lunch in, and maybe some dry socks, because that's always important, and a water bottle. And then sometimes maybe later on in the year, they might come home with some home reading or a library book or something like that. So you want to be able to make sure that it fits in a library book or two. But that's pretty much the size of the backpack you're going to need. So not too big, not too small. So the one thing you can have for your child is a backpack would be great, and something easy for them to eat their lunch out of. But the rest of it, we got you covered.
And so that also goes for the first day of school. There was a specific question about the first day of school, if they need to bring anything. I would say you just need to be prepared to only have your child at school for probably an hour. So take that day off, or be prepared to spend most of that day with your child, because they're only going to be at school for a little bit. So if we don't need to bring supplies, but what if parents or kids or families want to bring supplies? From a teacher's perspective, what's your response to that?
So I would wait to hear what your teacher says. So each classroom is going to be a little bit different. So I would hold off and wait till you hear from your classroom teacher and see what they say. I do know some children have like a little stuffy they like to bring. And so my rule of thumb is, if you don't want to lose it, don't bring it. Schools are big places. So if your child wants to bring a stuffy, like a tiny little, maybe like an attachment toy or something like that, put it in the backpack, say goodbye to it when you drop your child off, and tell them that the stuffy or whatever it is going to live in the backpack until you come home and pick your child up. So they know that this comfort toy is in their backpack, but if they take it out and play with it, it's quite distracting, and chances are probably it might get lost, which is going to end up being a really big thing. So don't send your kids to school with things that you're not okay with them losing.
Or have replacements for.
Or have replacements for them, yeah.
Even though it's not really supplies, because the families don't need to be prepared for that. I would say that over the summer break, to shop for like the extra muddy buddy, or the indoor shoes, or have an extra change of clothes available. I typically go a size up, because my kids won't be wearing them for the next year, and it's a safety measure just in case. So having the time to prepare for that and not scrambling last minute, I found very helpful. There are lots of questions about the types of food and drinks to bring or not allowed to bring to school. What about allergy considerations, nuts? Can you speak about that, Adrienne?
So our schools are nut aware schools. And so there are allergies, and we know children that do have allergies. So your school probably will send home some information, and your kindergarten teachers specifically in September will send some information home. We do ask that that you be nut aware and that you think about allergies and you think about other families. There is no banned food that I know of right now, but your school will send you some information home about nut allergies and whatnot. And if they are asking you to not, if there's a nut allergy in your child's class, but do be aware that VSB is a nut aware environment.
Questions about safety. So on the playground, when there's, 4, 5, 600 kids all out there, who's watching them? How are we sure that the kids will go back to their classroom?
So we have supervision aides, and so there's specific people that are trained, and their jobs are to supervise at recess, lunch, and break times. With the very beginning of the year, typically kindergarten children, some of them have a different lunch or break time, so they stagger it a little bit so they can show them, okay, you're going to play on the playground area. Lots of schools have their kindergarten students wear little pennies so that they can, at the beginning of the year, so they're identifiable as kindergarten students, and so people pay extra attention to them. Some of our schools will buddy them up with grade 7 students, and so it gives leadership opportunities to our grade 7s, and then they'll be able to watch the little kindergartens. So at the very beginning, you can be rest assured that your child will be supported through the whole free play thing. By the end of kindergarten, they're old hats at it. They know the routine and they're ready to go. But at the very beginning, you can rest assured that they'll be well looked after and made sure that they understand where they're supposed to play, how they can play. Some schools specifically have primary playgrounds and intermediate playgrounds, or specific areas where the older children are supposed to play and the younger children are supposed to play. So depending on your school, but there are supervisions, there are adults there to help them, there's older children there to help them, and we do have really, really good systems to make sure that the children are well looked after.
Some more questions about food. Is it possible to heat your kids' lunch? And do they have enough time to eat their snacks?
So no, there isn't a place for your child to heat their lunch. If you want to send your child to school with a warm lunch, you would have to use some sort of thermos to keep it warm. So we don't have microwaves or anything for student use at the schools. You'll have to wait for high school for that one. And sorry, what was the second one? There was the warm
Do they
lunch.
have enough time to eat their snacks?
So typically kindergarten I would say would eat their snack in class before recess. I had more often than not that's very typical, is that before they go out to play, the teacher will take time to have snack inside the classroom. So yeah, they'll have an opportunity to eat their snack.
I'll also speak from experience that the snacks are always finished. It's the lunch that's not. So I don't really have any concerns with snacks. Back to the toilets. I know we covered quite a bit. There are some curious questions about the size of the toilets. Will the kids be able to reach them? Will they be lowered? Are there specific toilets for kindergarteners?
Yeah, so we do have smaller toilets, if I'm going to say that. That's so our primary bathrooms are built specifically for younger children. Yes, so they shouldn't have a problem be able to use a typical toilet. They should be able to go about it without a problem. I have yet to see a child, even the tiniest of children coming into kindergarten, are able to successfully use the toilets.
This is an interesting related question. Are there bidets in the washrooms?
No, we don't have bidets in the washroom. So in a typical girls' washroom, you'll see stalls. So 3 or 4 stalls is pretty typical. They'll have doors that don't quite reach to the top and bottom of the door in case there's an emergency and somebody needs to help a child get out of a stall. So there'll be gaps between the bottom of the stall door and the top of the stall door in case a child might need some help. And then there'll be a couple of sinks for hand washing. And then we use hand dryers in our washrooms, and then for a typical boys washroom, there'll be a couple of the urinals that we talked about, and also there'll be a couple of stalls for in a boys washroom as well. And then we also have gender neutral single stalls washrooms, so if your child needs to use a gender neutral single stall washroom, we have those available. And we also have accessible washrooms for children that might have a variety of needs. So each of our schools has accessible washrooms, gendered washrooms, and gender neutral washrooms.
How many students are in a kindergarten class in Vancouver?
So our maximum number of children could be 20. And then that varies on the enrollment of the school depending on that. But the maximum would be 20.
And I believe that makes Vancouver a bit unique because I don't think other school districts have a only K cohort of 20 students. So that's just an interesting tidbit. I've gotten some questions about the curriculum. Specifically, what are kindergartners going to learn? Can they find the syllabus somewhere? Can they follow the curriculum?
Yeah, so you can go to the BC curriculum website. You're welcome to Google that and take a look at what the kindergarten curriculum is off the top. If you just Google BC curriculum, I don't know the website off the top of my head. I maybe should have had that prepared. Apologies. And then one of the ways that you can do is when your child is in kindergarten, your kindergarten teacher in the school will communicate about what your child is learning throughout the course of the year.
Some curious questions about being late for school, and specifically, how many times can a child be late for school?
So we really encourage you trying not to be late, and that's for a lot of reasons, but mostly it's really just kind of disruptive, and the child feels a little bit of anxiety when they're running in. They feel like a little bit that they've missed out, and there's a little bit of a rush. So if you can get to school on time, it would be really great. But life happens. We do have a program called Safe Arrival at School. So we recommend that you call into the school and let them know that your child is absent or late. There's a phone number. Each school has a specific phone number to call. It'll be on your school's website, or when you start school in September, they'll probably share that number with you. And it's best to call if you know your child's going to be sick. Call in the morning, and then we know that your child is safe. If you don't call in, the Safe Arrival system sort of kicks in, and the office assistant or somebody else will contact you and make sure that your child is safe at home. So yes, life happens, and you're absent, you're late. Make sure you use the system so that Safe Arrival, so we know that your child is okay.
And also, just so you're prepared when when your child gets sick during kindergarten, you can use the same number to call the school and let them know that your child will not be coming in. I've gotten a question about do we offer after and before school care for school-aged kids?
So before and after school cares are operated by third-party providers at our sites. And so you would have to connect with the third-party operator at your child's school to see if they have available spaces for before and after school care.
And jumping back to earlier, we talked about if you're late, try not to be late. What time can families start to drop off their kids?
So there's supervision starting about 10 minutes before school. So we have supervision on the playground for if the bell rings at 8:55, 8:45, there'd be some supervision, but double check with your school's administration to make sure that you know when supervision starts before school. So just double check with your school's administration or the teaching staff once you start school in September to ensure that you know what time supervision on the playground starts.
I'm still seeing some questions about gradual entry, Adrienne. So maybe you can help spell out exactly. I know every school is different, but in general, what can parents expect? Like the first day might be an hour and then increase to 2 hours, 3 hours. And can you also weave in an answer about supporting children with ASD?
So gradual entry schedules will be coming to you before the end of this school year. So you should have heard from your child's school before June 27th with the gradual entry schedule. Typically, the first day of school for a child in kindergarten is the Wednesday. So we start an hour for children returning to school on the Tuesday. Typically, the new kindergarten students would start on the Wednesday. And you'll come, I'm most likely about an hour. And that hour, you'll get to meet the teachers. There'll be some playtime. And then that'll kind of be it. Your child may be split into two groups. And so it depends on the size of your school. And then the next day, your child will come for a little bit more. And then the next day, your child will come and stay for lunch. And so it increases time. Your child will go every day, but it depends. And they increase the time each day that your child attends. It's to develop stamina in your child and to get your child used to the school. And then the full day of school, the first one will be, like I mentioned, Wednesday the 10th. And so they will attend from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. Wednesday the 10th. And then every day thereafter, it'll be 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Um, some questions about picking up our children now. Can parents, if they have to, be late, or what is there a grace period here?
So we don't have, so about 10 minutes, the same on the front of school as there is on the back of school. There is a little bit of supervision available at the back side of the school. If you need to pick up your child considerably later than that, you need to arrange for childcare. Lots of families share pick up and drop off with other families. So as you get to know kindergarten families, you can say, hey, you know what? I have to work on Tuesdays. Are you able to walk my child home? And then I'll walk your child home on Friday. As soon as you get involved in the kindergarten community, you'll be able to meet other families and hopefully be able to work things out. If you do need to arrange childcare, then we don't have supervision for much longer than 10 minutes after school. So yes, if you need to stay for a couple of hours or like an hour or so, then you'll have to arrange childcare for your child.
So in Vancouver, we have a very diverse population, and we recognize that not all families have, speak English as their first language. So how do we help families with children who are speaking a different language at home and help them transition to school, transition to kindergarten?
Children who don't speak English in kindergarten are honestly at the best time because kids are so non-judgmental at this age. They'll just meet each other and they'll find something that they like to play, that be it cars or blocks or the sand pile, and they'll just figure out how to communicate. It is so endearing and so amazing. They learn language from each other so quickly. I've yet to see a child in kindergarten that doesn't just blossom with English really, really quickly because they want to play so badly with their peers. We do have English support teachers that help children with learning their English. Kindergarten teachers are so kind and so gentle, and they will pick up language really, really quickly. I wouldn't be stressed if your child doesn't speak English yet. There's tons of support and they'll learn really quickly. We do have help for families who don't speak English as well, and technology is ultimately the most amazing thing. And thankfully for that, Google Translate anything. And so we do our best to support families at school with translations of documents and stuff if possible, and help support you with multicultural workers and stuff too.
A question about safety. Are the staff trained in CPR or first aid in case there is an unfortunate event and a kid needs help with if they're choking, for instance?
Yeah, each of our schools has a first aid attendant, and so they are trained, and we do have first aid attendants and we have backup first aid. So there is support at the school in case there's emergencies.
This question is about our teaching practices. Do we teach predominantly the BC culture, or do we introduce Indigenous worldviews as well as diversity of global cultures?
So part of our BC curriculum absolutely includes Indigenous. Or if you go to the BC curriculum, it'll talk very much about how we connect Indigenous ways of learning into our culture and into our curriculum. And the expectation is that all of our classes and our teachers and stuff incorporate Indigenous ways of learning into the curriculum regularly.
One person asked, could I tour the school beforehand?
So you will be invited to your school for an On the Way to K event. If you haven't already had your On Your Way to K event, they should be coming up. Lots of schools already have them. So you'll be invited to the school to meet the staff and do a little bit of an event at the school. And so you're welcome to, you should probably go to that event, and that'll be your opportunity to see the inside of the school.
We only have 2 minutes, so I'm gonna kind of pick and choose the ones that have the most likes. There's one about their child not, what if they don't want to stay for the full 6 hours from the beginning? And we kind of already covered that about gradual entry. That's the whole point of gradual entry, is to get them used to, accustomed to school slowly. We're not just pushing them and going into the wild.
Exactly.
What if your child needs to miss school for family vacation or appointments? Is there a maximum number of days that they can be excused? And also, how should they do that?
So talk to your so the safe arrival is usually the typical way that families will call in to and let them know they have a doctor's appointment or whatever, and then talk to your school's administration if you're planning on a long-term holiday. I know lots of families maybe take long-term holidays to visit family back in another part of the world. It's really hard to fly halfway around the world for a weekend. So, but just let your school's administration know and let them if that's going to be the case with you. We do recommend that your child attend school every day. Part of that is for socialization. They develop friendships really well. And just being at school is a great thing for your child. They'll have so much fun.
Okay, I'm gonna have one last question to squeeze in for the last minute. Someone has asked if there's a school app that parents can download to use for communicating with their school.
We don't have a school app. Communication through your school, I recommend we have all those staff have emails, and they will talk to you in September about their preferred method of communication. And so as soon as you meet your classroom teacher, they'll let you know the best way to communicate with them.
And as the communications manager, I can speak a little bit more to this. So every school is a little bit different depending on their school community and what they prefer. Some schools primarily communicate through email. Some schools communicate through an app that they've kind of done themselves. Some schools, they have newsletters. They have weekly news. I would say actually every school has a newsletter, but the frequency varies between weekly, monthly, quarterly, bi-weekly, whatever that is. So you'll definitely get to learn more as you head into the school year. A lot of that will be will be told to you from the school principal. And that leaves us at 7 o'clock. I hope this was insightful for the families. I want to say a welcome to VSB, an early welcome. And lots of you were asking if you could see this presentation online or have it downloaded. And yes, this is part of our podcast. It's our live series. So it will be published on our website. The links, the resources that I shared earlier will be in the show notes. And so just go onto our website, vsb.bc.ca. There's a little toggle for the podcast section, and this will be living there, maybe not tonight, but tomorrow morning when we get back into the office. So thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Adrienne, for spending the time. And we'll see everyone in September. Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.